what I wanted to do today was just focus on what are some key tools that you can take away that can help you figure out what are the things that are most important for you. And when I think about sales and marketing and the way that I operate, what my job is to do is to help you bat up the order, to help you punch above your weight, and to help you figure out how you can drink champagne on a beer budget. So for me, everyone needs to figure out how they're going to be their very own Stephen Bradbury. And the question I get asked a lot is, well, where do you start? You know, what's the secret sauce? What is it that's going to deliver a really fantastic sales and marketing execution? And for me, the one thing that I find is the thread that separates successful from unsuccessful, and that's focus. And I know that sounds really simple and really straightforward, and I bet there's nobody here in the room who has ever had any trouble focusing, who's never taken on more than they could possibly handle. So focus is as much an art as it is a science. And by way of background, to give you a bit of context, I've spent the last 10 or so years working with SMEs, scale-ups and startups, working with owners, with founders and with CEOs, helping them do exactly that, helping them punch above their weight and figuring out what it is that's going to help them unlock that next stage of growth. So what I thought I'd do today is, as part of that experience in the last 10 years, I've had some successes and I've also had my fair share of failures. And I thought I'd share some of the learnings from those experiences over the years. Has everybody heard of Urban Spoon? Good, yes, lots of nods. So Urban Spoon were a restaurant search and discovery platform based out of Canada. Great example of a really small team punching above their weight. They essentially, it was user-generated content and their customer base was in Canada. They were head office in Canada, so that makes sense. But their second biggest market in the world was Australia. And then they also had a presence in the US. Now they sold to a business called Zomato, which was an Indian-based business, which had a similar sort of search and discovery platform. And I was brought on board as the country manager for Australia. And my remit was to bring the Urban Spoon and the Zomato brands together to wrap a range of customer experience improvements around that and to launch a hyperlocal advertising product, which was a lovely complement to the search and discovery business. But our ambitions grew really quickly and we wanted to be the end-to-end solution for the restaurant industry. We wanted to have everything from search and discovery to table reservations to food delivery. And because the key factor in winning that market was speed, we wanted to do it all at once. So I tripled the size of the sales team. So we went to 150 people in the sales team in the space of 6 months, and we went to market. Fast forward 3 months, and our market penetration was, does anybody want to take a guess? Terrible. And it wasn't because we had a bad product. It wasn't because we didn't have enough resources. It was because in every single new vertical that we went into, there was a different set of competitors. And there were long-established competitors in some of those verticals. So what that meant was that we had to wind back dramatically. We shut down everything except the search and discovery business and the hyperlocal advertising business. But the challenge was that the reputation damage was done and the brand never really recovered. And within about 18 months, Zomato exited Australia. So the real learning for me there was that just because you can do everything doesn't mean that you should. And something that's executed poorly can often do a lot more damage than you think. But every cloud has a silver lining, and I had a completely opposite experience at another business that I worked in. I went to Scentre by Chris Hemsworth, and I was the head of customer and growth there very early on in the piece, shortly after it launched. I mean, I'll just give you a minute to admire Chris, because I spent 3 years doing it. Terrible occupational hazard. Has everybody's heard of Scentre? Most people. Who signed up during COVID? Come on, there's got to be one. Oh, yep, there's one. Two, good. COVID was an absolute game changer for digital health and fitness. The category absolutely blew up. There was a ton of M&A activity, and there were many brands spending a ton of money on customer acquisition because top line growth was very, very sexy. And they felt like that, you know, they were shooting ducks in a barrel, basically. So the market went off. Post-COVID, when people went back to their new normal and the dust settled, there were some real winners and there were some real losers in that digital health and fitness space. And Scentre, fortunately, was one of those winners, and I'll share with you why. I said earlier that during COVID, a lot of people went, particularly in this category, went really crazy on customer acquisition. And that meant that their North Star was really set at that top line growth, which meant that it was all about that new customer acquisition number. And cost, and the cost of acquisition was secondary. And post-COVID, that didn't change. And that put Scentre in a really difficult position, because at the start of COVID, we absolutely punched above our weight because we got out early. We did a 6-week free offer, and Chris got out and promoted it really heavily, and we got tens of millions of dollars of free PR, which absolutely supercharged our acquisition. But post-COVID, we were dealing with brands that had much bigger budgets, teams that were much bigger than ours, and there was still that environment where they were prepared to drive top-line customer acquisition growth at any cost, and we just couldn't afford to do that. So what we needed to look at were, what were the levers that we could pull as a business that would help us grow in the right way? So the thing that we've had an absolute laser focus on was, who are the customers that are actually going to convert better? How are they going to stay longer? And shock horror, let's acquire them at a cost that's below break even. Now, what that meant was that when it came to optics, our top line new customer growth wasn't what the competitors were, but what we did have was we had strong conversion rates, we had strong retention rates, and we had continued to be profitable, which meant that while everybody and anybody who's worked in subscription businesses know the biggest challenge is you got a leaky bucket, right? And our bucket was just leakier than everybody else's. So when it came to sort of 2 years post-COVID, when a lot of that merger and acquisition activity that had happened early on in the piece, that was being wound back, that was being written down, and we were acquired by private equity. So it's a really good lesson in, just because all of your competitors seem to be doing well in a particular way, or if they're chasing something that might seem to be an important metric, there are other ways of going about it that are still going to deliver you a really great result. So let's talk about a couple of more tactics for you that can help you punch above your weight. And, you know, connecting with your most valuable customer is often, it's talked about a lot, but it's rarely broken down into kind of short bite-sized pieces that can help you actually achieve that. And for me, the first one sounds really obvious, but doesn't always kind of land that way, and that's your channel focus. For some of you, it's really obvious. You only have one channel, right? Your B2B or your B2C. But for some of you, you might have both. And the question is always, which one do I do? And the answer is you should focus on one, and you should focus on the one that is going to grow your business the fastest. And you should grow that in a way, always keeping in mind that it should halo over that secondary channel. And for me, the best example of this was Afterpay. Now, Afterpay weren't, and I'm talking 2016 Afterpay, not 2024 Afterpay. This is in the early days of Afterpay when they launched. Afterpay weren't the first buy now, pay later product in the world by any stretch. But what they were was they were the first of their kind who said, we are going to treat this as a consumer business. We are going to grow this as a consumer brand. And they did it really well. What some of you may know or may not know is that Afterpay generated more web referral traffic to retailers than Google did. So all of a sudden, Afterpay had a B2B strategy that was, they had demand coming in the door. And not only did they have demand coming in the door, they were able to increase their prices. So what they're actually charging retailers to use the Afterpay product went up. So a really powerful example of understanding channel and being able to use it to drive a really solid outcome across two different channels. The second one really builds on what Steve was saying earlier around data. Like, get your data in order, have it all in one location, but you've got to make it meaningful. You've got to use it to help make your business decisions. And, yes, it's useful if you know your customer is in North Sydney and they're male and, their average value is $1,200, but that actually doesn't help you grow the value of your business. What is the difference in the behaviour and the attributes of a customer who purchases with you once versus a customer who purchases with you multiple times? What's the difference between a customer who converts and a customer who doesn't convert? What's the difference between someone who buys one product and 10 products? When you start asking those questions, then you really understand what are the triggers that actually make that behaviour happen, and that's what will actually help you influence outcomes in your business. And the last one's a real passion point of mine, and that is stand for something. A brand with a personality and a point of view is going to connect way more than a vanilla brand. And in a world where attention is absolutely everything, it's more important than ever. And consumer brands historically do this really well, but B2B brands are on the most are a long way behind. So if you can nail this and you can develop a proposition that really stands out, there is tremendous opportunity for you to cut through and to really start to sort of build that brand awareness, which then drives more people into your funnel. And there's a really great example of this. And the thing to remember with this, if you're a B2B brand, is that you don't have to be sexy to be able to stand out. And there's a brand, and has anybody heard of Rejig? I wouldn't expect you. Oh, we've got a tech person in the room. So they're a Sydney-based software company, and they make, no offence to HR, but arguably one of the most boring categories, HR software. But what they did is they recognised that they needed to stand out in a category that was, pretty boring. And what they don't do as a brand is they don't say, we do HR software. They say, create a world with zero wasted potential. Are you ready to reinvent your workforce and your central nervous system for all your talent decisions? So all of a sudden, if you're in the market for HR software, this brand very clearly has a personality and a point of view that whether or not they're right for your business or not, you're actually going to get on the radar. So I just thought it was a really interesting and powerful example. So when you look at your brand, ask yourself, are you promoting a category? are you talking about what you do versus what it is that makes you interesting and different? And the last thing I want to cover is weaponizing your brand. And before you roll your eyes thinking that I'm going to talk to you about ads and logos, that's exactly the opposite of what weaponizing your brand is about. Because for me, your brand really needs to be the thing that guides your decisions and it drives everything you do. And my favourite example, and I know that Pete shares my view on this, is my favourite example of a business that has weaponised their brand is Adore Beauty. Now, Adore Beauty, who's heard of Adore Beauty? Surely, yeah, like Universal, exactly. Now, Adore Beauty was a spunky little startup, you know, woman in a garage who said, right, I want to sell international cosmetic brands online. Great idea. Back when convenience was not on offer, they solved the convenience. But what they said is that they knew that wasn't sustainable, that was a short-term advantage. So they dug deeper, and what they did was they uncovered a really key customer insight, and that is that beauty enthusiasts are brand polygamists. Bet you didn't think you'd be talking about polygamy at the ETA conference. And they're brand polygamists because they don't want just one brand. They don't want just one thing to buy. They want to be able to buy across multiple categories and multiple brands. And so what they did was they weaponised that insight. So they created a customer service model where beauty experts guide you to the perfect product across a whole range of brands, which meant that they weren't just selling products, they were selling expertise and they were selling personalisation. And because Adore Beauty is Adore Beauty, they didn't stop there either. They really amplified this expertise through content creation. They became the go-to destination for beauty editorial, how-to guides. They extended into podcasts, user-generated content, social media. And I was having a look at their annual report for last year. And does anybody want to have a guess on how many impressions their content strategy delivered? It's in the tens of millions. And impressions is essentially eyeballs, right? So this is the number of times a piece of their content was viewed. Does anybody want to have a guess? Tens of millions? Not billions, not tens of millions. God, did you learn anything from the finance presentation before? 60 million is the number of impressions that they had over a 12-month period. So what's really important about that, it's not a vanity metric. What you've got there is an incredibly powerful lead generation engine. And it is largely an organic lead generation engine. And in a market where paid media is getting more and more and more expensive, that is incredibly effective and it adds a massive amount of enterprise value as well. And then, of course, again, because there's more steak knives to come, that's not the only thing that Adore Beauty did. Who's got a delivery from Adore Beauty? So, yeah, I know. And what's in the box?
I don't recall can't answer that, but I can definitely say that their services comes immediately well packaged.
So what treat's in the box for you? Do you remember? Oh, yeah. There's a Tim Tam. So in every single Adore Beauty order, there's a Tim Tam. Now, a Tim Tam isn't just a biscuit. It's a moment of indulgence, and I don't know about your house, but in my house, it's also something that gets fought over. So long after the order's been done online, long after the box has arrived, Adore has done a fantastic job of keeping their brand front of mind. So for me, that's what weaponising your brand really looks like. It's about thinking about what is the insight around your customer and how do you instill that in everything that you do. So to sum up, I will leave you with 3 takeaways today. Firstly, focus like Chris Hemsworth. Stay true to what's really going to add the most value for your business, and, don't get distracted when everybody else is doing something different. Rejig, rejig, rejig. Keep refining what you do until you really understand your customers and what it is that you need to do to connect with them. And of course, find your Tim Tam moment. Keep creating those unique and memorable brand experiences that last long after they have become visible and front of mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. Did anyone have any questions for Kate while she's up here? They can be personal questions you can take offline, like we had with the lenders the other day.
Have I met Chris?
Yes.
Is he as nice as he is on camera? Yes.
Damn him.
Yeah, I know.
I thought at the end there, when you were going through your 3 things, actually I was laughing with Carmel at the back, it's like focus, focus, focus. Focus on Chris Hemsworth. No, like.
Yeah.
Right.
Easy to remember.
There was a question over here, sorry. Yes, Kylie.
What's the biggest marketing trend that you think people like SMEs that have some B2C element need to focus on?
Insights, I think, are the really important thing, because there's no short, audiences are getting harder and harder to reach cost effectively. So more than ever, really understanding what it is that matters to them. And so to give you an example, at Centre, one of the things that we focused on was what was it? Someone took out a 7-day free trial. What was it that then made them pay for a subscription versus someone who didn't? And what it was 3 workouts. So if during that 7 days somebody did 3 workouts, they were something like 80% more likely to convert. So what we did was, in that 7-day trial period, what do you think we focused on? Getting them to do 3 workouts. So that was driven from the insight that we knew, and that had the biggest impact, because you can fill your funnel up the top, but if you're not efficient in actually getting those customers to do what you need them to do, it's just a waste of money.
Paige.
What are your recommendations on getting insights from a business that has a really diverse customer base? Like, so many different verticals, different metrics for each of them, low concentration, like everyone's different. Where do you focus?
Paige is asking for a friend.
Figure out the ones that you want. And I'll give you another Centre example. So I'll give you another example. So health and fitness is a really big category, right? And there's lots of different customers in that spectrum. And what we decided was the most valuable customers for us weren't beginners. Beginners is the biggest possible market that you could have. Our market was intermediate to advanced. And so already by making that decision, we'd carved off. And so the thing that I would say to you is, you don't always need to be afraid to the people that you're no longer going to talk to, because some of those you'll get by default, but the ones that you need to figure out the ones that are most important and really narrow your focus on those. Because if you're everything to everybody, you're nothing to most people.
Focusing on something that's isolated and not focusing on something else.
Yep.
So I've got what my friend has 4 main customers, and they're all different.
Yeah.
And if I focus on one, I'm not focusing on one of the others.
Yeah.
So whether gain I'm making somewhere, I'm potentially losing somewhere else.
Yeah.
I need to go back.
Well, I mean, again, it's a bit like the channel choice that I talked about with, if you think of them as kind of different channels, and it's not always clear cut. Paige, it's not always easy to say, I'm just going to do this and I'm not going to turn them off. Completely appreciate that. But it's, where are the similarities and where are the differences? So where are some of the things that you can do the same, and where are some of the things that you can do different? And if you have 4 really distinctive customers that are really valuable, then you got to have 4 different strategies, and you got to figure out kind of how to reach them. And then you've just got to figure out, well, what are the cost implications of those? What are the resource implications of those? And as you get more and more mature, you will probably figure out that some of those can run themselves more than others. And it should, it'll figure itself out. But the answer is, if you've got 4 different, it's just more complicated and more expensive. If they are absolutely must-haves. And, like any model, you try and simplify them down. But if you can't, you can't.
Oh, Jake. You're not allowed to ask questions.
So a lot of the businesses that our entrepreneurs are inheriting have limited to zero marketing data, a 20-year-old website, no brand statements, no brand identity really, and to-do list 1,000 items long. How do they go about, how do you recommend going about by advertising, at least in a marketing context, among those alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, you would have got pretty clear from the Adore Beauty example, brand is, for me, the starting point. And it's not because it's just my perspective, but because I think it gives you real clarity of purpose. And it helps you make the decisions and the priorities that you need to. So what is it that your brand wants to be? And I don't mean taglines and ads. What I mean is what are the pillars that actually anchor you as a business? So, are you future focused? Are you all about a particular, are you about mobility? So what are the key things that as a business that you think you can differentiate on and you can win on? And then you get your proof points under those, and then you kind of work your way up and say, okay, if I want to say these things about who I am, who are the people that are going to be interested in hearing that, and how do they actually want to hear about it? So I think as much as a brand, when you go out there, you don't talk about this is what I do. You start from a position of this is what I do, this is what I'm going to be able to do really well, and this is how it's going to be interesting for people.
Just to add to that, Kate mentioned that one of the pieces of work we're doing at the moment is we've actually gone through that whole process of defining the brand pillars, being really, really specific about that. What we have to start to notice is that clients now starting to use that language in the way that they talk about themselves, talk about their brand, and they're much more focused. They all comes back to those core pillars about what does the brand stand for, how does that relate to the customers. We want to all work the same. There's a whole lot of work that goes into understanding the customer, looking at the insights, speaking to them, spending time with them, usually that insight and that area.
And it really helps focus, because there's a million things that you could do, but you go back and you say, okay, we agreed we're going to be these 4 things. Does it align with those 4 things? Does it build on those 4 things? If it doesn't align or doesn't build on those 4 things, it goes to the no basket.
Like the America's Cup, right, Luke? How do we make the boat go faster? Yeah. Any other questions before? Oh, one more, last question.
It's unlikely that the businesses will be acquiring will have a marketing team in-house. At what point do you recommend outsourcing versus insourcing to develop that capability?
I think this is not just for marketing. I think this is kind of universal. There's stuff you need done in the beginning that doesn't necessarily have the same skill set as stuff that you'll need ongoing. And the stuff you need to done at the beginning is probably better outsourced, because you need more firepower and there's probably more strategic thinking, and you can start to set up the frameworks with that. But then you very quickly need to transition to, getting that in-house and getting that executed.
I love that idea that the businesses we buy will have a marketing team. Where's the marketing team? Yeah. Here's my dog. His name is Sam. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you.